Flowers for Antonio. Flores for Antonio. We have in the press conference from left to right, Elena Molina, the director, Alba Flores, who was the creative producer of the film, and Isaki, the Lacuesta, the director. As always, please raise your hands so that I can give you the floor to ask your questions. Second row, please. Good morning. Congratulations for the film. The first of all, which I thought was beautiful, but I thought it was beautiful. For Isaki and for Alba, what does it mean for you to make this film for Isaki? Because from a filmmaker, you're a musician. Well, I'm about to be a musician. And Alba, more from the personal standpoint, because despite the tribute to the figure of Antonio Flores, it's a story of a daughter to find out what her father was and who he was. Above all, the film has been an emotional learning process. I remember during a shoot when we were filming the conversations of Alba with her mother, with Anna, which was a catharsis, extreme catharsis. You're a kamikazes of emotional intelligence, and they're very wise, and they've worked a lot. And I would like to think that this can be learned. It's always been with them. Well, for me, this is a before and an after, a tremendous before and after in my life. I've never done something so important, nor so significant for myself and for my family as well. So therefore, yes, for me, the truth is, it's a before and an after. Hi, good morning, Mario from Mondocine. Congratulations, first of all, for the film. I'd like to ask you, the three of you, whether you believe that this documentary, just like Isaki, your latest film, Segundo Premio, can work as a generational bridge to show the work and legacy of Antonio. Quite fortunately, I got to know Antonio through my mother. Otherwise, not so lucky, but a documentary for this can bring about the soul of Antonio to a new generation. To what extent do you think that can happen? Thank you. Okay. It's something that we thought about quite a lot from the script, and then especially in the shooting and in the editing process, because we were thinking about spectators from different generations, and we believe that the fact that Alba has now has an extensive audience of young people could make people can see the film. But we thought it was very interesting, the entire family, from the figure of Lola, that we believe was the first influencer when the word influencer didn't even exist. But we were always thinking about different spectators that can see the film from different places, and to see and to give that information. But we wanted the story to be universal and to a certain extent connect everything that's in your family, silences, conversations pending, and absences that are painful. That's how it's built, but obviously to give that information, but above all, from the connection that everyone can have with the story that we're trying to tell. Congratulations. I'd like to ask Alba, and as regards to the figure of your father, there are things that you and the rest of your family, you've rediscovered or understood better thanks to the documentary. And what message would you like to convey to the new generations vis-a-vis the figure of your father thanks to the film? There's something, but that's the case, yes, that's such. When we started to make the film and record sequences with my family and with my aunties and with my cousins, I wasn't aware of the fact that I had not spoken to them about all of this, and it was discovering it there in the middle of things, in the midst of things. We've all discovered a lot about my father, but also a lot about each of us, because we've brought together all of the visions and pieces that everyone had about him, his life and his death. And of course, all of a sudden, we have a portrait which is much more complete. That's a sharing who he is between us all. It seems that we gave him more dimension and more colors, where he's defined much more. And I think he's become more present. And especially my cousins, younger cousins, who didn't meet him very much, have discovered many, many things. The most beautiful experiences was to see Laura, Pedro, and Antonio, my youngest cousins who didn't live with him very much, to discover who their uncle was. Not only did I discover who my father was more, but for the following generations who will come along, like the daughters of my cousin Elena, I'm glad to have left a testimony and a place that they can look at to get to know who their uncle was. And it's marked the family quite a lot, how he was as an artist, as a person, and a bit. That's what I want for the audience to know. That is one of the things that has encouraged me to do this and to do it open to the audience and to tell so many things and expose ourselves so much, is that a lot of people throughout my life would come here talking about how my father had been very significant in their lives, his music, his charisma, a lot of people who knew him when he was alive. So I've received so much kindness and interest, and people that feel the pain when we lost him. I felt that we had to share this with everyone so that we can also remember him and celebrate him and to cry for his loss. Along these lines of this question, when we started to work in the project with Alba and Elena, we imagined a film in third person, and where the songs, the lyrics, they're autobiographical, could use to tell the story, but the process brought about stories in the life of Alba, and we realized, as she said, they've talked much less than what we thought, and that surprised us quite a lot. And they said in the film, the fear of hurting each other, they were very cautious. But these situations, and we started to discover material and photos and videos and songs that triggered emotions. This is the story of a daughter looking for a father, and this changes the structure completely. And Alba was courageous and generous to get involved in that. It wasn't an imposition of her as a producer, vice versa. We requested this, and she accepted, and I think makes the film much better because it's much more realistic. It would be much more false to hide it than to show it. And this is a tough emotional side for her and for her family. Tough, but at the same moment is cathartic. During the shoot, in front of them, behind the camera, we cried a lot, but we also laughed a lot. And every time we discovered something every day. We shot during the shooting of the film and in the archives, because it's also been a very long journey of finding archives of a conversation led to a new archive, another new archive, took us to a person, this person led us to understand the lyrics of a song. So therefore, it's been a collage that Antonio did with those collages that he made, which was at the origin of the source of the film, to make a collage following his logic and his search, and he was always searching for new things. And it was very beautiful, and in turn, it was very intensive, because archives, up until the last week, when we did the editing, it has been a continuous search for information and surprise and catharsis, like Isaki has said. It's been a project which was a very alive project, and in a certain way we believe Antonio has been directing us with his lyrics, with his drawings, and so on, and we navigated and we accepted what the film was providing, and of course the family that have been so generous. Alba was very courageous and recovering. What you said about the songs, we realized yesterday that initial idea that Antonio lyrics were going to guide us, and they do. We've closed this circle because it was the need of Alba to sing those songs. So therefore, that initial line of using the songs, I think that was the first clue And that was a good start to make the film. Mexico promo. Nerea from Movistar Plus, and congratulations for the film. It's a marvelous film. It's very moving. Alba, I'd like to ask you why now, why it is true the orphanage process is when you come to the age when your parents die, there's something that moves in you, and the film has been a before and an after, and I'd like to know, how is that after? You can sing, well, how do you feel? I don't know. I'll discover this. This hasn't finished. Today is a very important day. It's the first time that we're going to see the film, all the entire family together. This has never happened. And I send the film to my aunties, but they've seen it sort of off to the side, but it's very powerful for them. Today, the catharsis has another opportunity of occurring. And that's how I feel. I think that something that I feel very powerfully is that it's a lot of freedom now, because I feel that there's something that I had to do that I've done, and I feel at peace. And I've conquered a freedom that for me and also for the family, that now everything is possible. And that what we've done, we've handed over and delivered, and now everything is possible. All of the possibilities are open, but it makes me nervous because there's quite a lot of uncertainty, but beautiful uncertainty, like with a lot of trust in life. How deep was that? Oh, that was beautiful. Sing, why don't you sing a song now, just to calm down? Hi, congratulations for the film. Alba, I'd like to ask you, you have always been very reserved with your private life. Since he was with you, I imagine it could be crazy to see a film like re-looking at your refinding your father with your family, and then make it public. It could be quite frightening from an audiovisual standpoint. Was there a moment in which you were afraid, you almost didn't do it, or have you always wanted to be an audiovisual tribute to find your father again? Thank you. No, I've discovered that this was my tool. Everything was put on the table, as Isaki said a little bit, and what I did was to take that advantage of that opportunity that my life was, life was giving me a chance to do something which was very sincere and deep, and to do it in my own terms at all. And that's why now and not before. But it was important that I was sufficiently mature to have a criteria to be able to choose to who with and how to do it. And I think that I saw the opportunity for transformation, and I said, yes, I do want to do it, which has led me to forge ahead. And I saw the opportunity to do it with the tools, with artistic tools. This is something that I was obsessed about throughout the entire process, because it's easy with my family, because of our life and media career. Nothing could have been sensationalist or morbid, and there's a lot of fear of this throughout my entire life, of how to pay tribute and how to do something expressive with what we've lived through with my father without falling into that sensationalism. I know that the tool was art, which is the supreme value of my family, but I needed to be accompanied correctly, and they understood me very well when how to make, well, I'm not just they've understood me, that these are two people, that's the way they are. They understand that what we had to seek was the depth and the poetry in all of this, and the truth, and honesty, and to portray it with the beauty of how life is for real, but through art, which is, it's much more enjoyable. Something that's very important in this film is that normally when you work, you don't know who you're aiming at. You imagine a spectator in your mind who's similar to thousands of millions of people that are optimistic. In this film, we knew who were making the film was for Alba, Ana, Rosario, and Lolita to make a film that they had to like. It's an issue of listening to them and to follow them. It's a film that starts and finishes in them. Hi, Alba. Good morning. Thank you very much for being in San Sebastian. Where are you? Okay. Not too sure. You're aware that as of late, the written press is rescuing a lot of articles on Antonio, and it's quite curious that now it's now going to be in film theaters. Are you aware that after many years after his death, the impact that the Flores family has had in Spain and everything that you're living through now? And do you still live that? And do you still feel that? Not too sure if you've seen the last Antonio with a Harley Davidson. Yes, of course, I did that. I published that number, no. But, of course, 30 years ago is when he died, so it's like an anniversary. The thing of being older than my father and everything is converging and conspiring for these things to happen, despite beyond our control, by the way. But, of course, we've wanted for this to be a tribute. It started with a concert that we held, which appears in the documentary a couple of years back, which was the moment to celebrate his life and to remember him. And I think that there is an exercise of being able to review his figure, and people wanted to, in fact. And as my cousin in the documentary says, I always had the key. I didn't know it, but I always had the key to open up that door to get to know him better, and for him his musical legacy to be more present, everything that he did in his life, for it, that we can continue to enjoy it. It's an impact that a family for so long, since the 1950s, the last century to the present moment, has been so present in the media. It's something, and Elena says, they've anticipated this public exposure that we have with the social media. They lived it since halfway through last century. It's something that has only occurred with the monarchies and with the Flores family. And seeing the high process and the documentaries, the interviews, and seeing TV programs that we didn't remember, you realize that the difference is that the monarchy, the saga of monarchy is false, but everything they told was in the Flores family was for real. Doña says, I was famous since I came out of my mother's body, between my legs of my mother. But in the archive, you can see that they've been in all of the stages of their life, they've been through, they've been in the media, and also their surname. It was a lot of fun with the archives. We've seen, when we saw all of the interviews of the entire family, you could see the story of TV. All of the presenters in all the history of TV in front of someone in my family, interviewing them, different hairdos. We could have done a montage on black and white and color. And in that sense, it connects with what we were saying before, that in a certain way, we've let ourselves go with what we've discovered and how Antonio was telling his own story, because quite often we had, and as Isaki said, that the film, the first thing is, it was a celebration of Antonio's life, and Ana, Alba, and the entire family had to be very happy first with the film and to feel that it was their own, but also of Antonio. So therefore, when we had any questions of how to address certain issues, to the interviews that Antonio gave and how he was so generous when sharing very closely. And I imagine due to that, since he was small, of being in front of a camera, but that has also been a compass which, when we've had questions of how far to go, to resort to how he talked about his story. And in this way, and I said about his drawings, his lyrics, but also giving a voice to what was happening. So that, for me, that has been very beautiful, the process of saying we don't want to say things that perhaps he would not have liked, but to resort to that generosity of how he said those things. I think that's been a key issue in the process. Antonio explicated with absolute transparency. He was very generous, not only in the media, also in his songs. It's as if that has helped us to use as a yardstick, because he was very intimate with his lyrics. And above all, in his last record, he explains a lot about the moment with a lot of details. He's very poetic, and he almost screams it out. This has given us the dimension of the level thing, cosas mías, my things, as the title of the record says. If you have any further questions, you can raise your hand. Yes. Hi, good morning. For Ser, Alba, after the documentary, the screening is going to be important. Have you thought of what Antonia thinks about the result of it? Yes. In these last few days, yesterday, we were talking about it in the family, my mother. What do you think? My mother, she's concerned. She's seeing how the film is. She's a bit surprised and dumbfounded. She said, "This is very powerful," because she imagines he would be very happy. He would be very thankful and grateful. So that stays with me in that sense. I take advantage to say that Anna has been our oracle in what we said before, that she has helped us enormously to explain the context, to explain, and as a compass in which way to go. And I think this has helped us a lot to think about how Antonio would feel it, which is very important. Third row. Hi, Alida from the EFE agency. I was going to say SER, but Alba, it's a question, but also thanks to the generations that lived with your father's music, and just that may have relieved you and gave you some answers. I think that it's relieved us, because our death impacted us, a lot of us, and it stuck to us beyond what we see in the magazines and in the media. We had that internal void. And this documentary has given us a lot of answers and relieved us as well. My question is along those lines, whether you believe that this has been able to help all of us followers and fans of your father. It's quite clearly made with an intention of relieving the pain and to bring to life his story again, and to be able to process the shock and the trauma of losing him so all of a sudden. Thank you very much for saying that, because I'm glad you say one has the ambition. We want it to be universal, and people can help people to do things to film, because otherwise it was just great, but it would just be something for me. I think all of us, we have the vocation for it not to be stuck into a story about our family, and that's it. No, we want to see how universal the story is, and it makes me very happy what you've said. There's another important thing that we also remembered in the process for the film had to be a celebration of Antonio's life. It shouldn't be a film from pain, but from celebration. And I believe and we hope that this evening will be the first time we see it with the audience, but the feeling when we leave the film theater can be that of celebration and not of pity. Obviously, there's pain there, because we need pain to celebrate. Like Lolita says, we're to heal, we have to scream, but it's a film. There are moments in which you go through places that are much tougher and more painful, but the premise was always to celebrate the life Tonio, and that's what we've worked a lot upon, and we hope such is the case. We have time for one more question. I've read an interview that exists for El País where you said you wanted to make something from art. The only thing is, but singing frightened you. Well, I'd like to know that singing was frightened you because it brought you too close to your father, and there was a bit of respect there. That was too much of an impact for you. And whether now, slowly but surely, you readdress that issue, and what's your relationship with music? Thank you. Whether you're still afraid. Well, I think that the film, we can see quite clearly, it's not easy to explain. I can't even explain it to myself. And what's the difficulty? What comes to my mind is when I see the images, when I was a kid singing with my father, Marian says, why can't I sing? Well, I say, I don't know what I can't sing, and I'm crying. And I cry because there's a lot of pain involved, the pity of not being able to do with it, and the demand of having to fill in a moment where I was the next one in line, and that feeling that singing has to be painful. It's not something that I felt I didn't feel it very pleasantly inside me. So therefore, and also the summary is, I didn't find myself free enough to be able to choose it or to stop doing it, but with freedom. And I think that has changed. Now I think I feel much freer to be able to go wherever the wind blows. And my relationship with singing, it's been so difficult to establish a healthy and beautiful and pleasant and pleasurable and enjoyable thing with him, and to expose it to the industry. I have to take care of it or not, we will see. I think that, like everything, I will see how I can do it in my own terms, and to my delight to express it, and perhaps I can express something and contribute something to the world, but I don't want to. But for me, it's enough. I've done what I had to do, and I can approach it much easier. But for me, to have written a song that comes in the credits of the film, which is a conclusion after the conclusion, because in the editing process, there's also been another healing process. There's been different landmarks in the making of this film, and after the editing, with the accompanying of Sylvia and her marvelous know-how, to be able to finish that song that I started to make and dedicated to my father, it closes a circle, and it gives me a lot of peace, and it makes me feel really, to healing things. It's possible if we want to heal things. It makes me feel optimistic. And plus, the last day we shot, when we were saying, she's saying Penita Pena, and we kept us only the ones who were there. But she also, for me, is something that connects with how the film finishes, with that marvelous soundtrack that they've done. But it was very beautiful on the last day of the shoot, how she started to sing. And this is something we say in the film that Rosario says to her, well, I almost took my shirt off. Now what she did, from the enjoyment and very spontaneously. I can say that there's that closure in the credits, in the shoot. There was also a closure, which is very beautiful, and I think very healing. Yes, it was. I'm thinking about that as we're here in a cinema film festival. We should claim the Alba Flores, who was an actor, who's got some very powerful performances. For example, Colegas, of Eloy de la Iglesia, he plays Antonio as well as Rosario, playing an incredible, great role, which was not noticed. As we can see, that Inigo's interview, he shows, you act as actors, brother and sister. they're not portraying they're portraying characters that are not the same as what they are in real life. And they do it very powerful, and I think that the music and the family origin has eclipsed the talent of Antonio as an actor, as well as with Lolita and with Rosario, who are great actors. Yes. Seeing colegas later, we had a conversation with my cousins, and we realized that the music it's like the first love of my family. We love it so much, sometimes it eclipses everything else, but we started to think, well, gee, my grandmother did 50 films in which my grandfather was there also, and also for my grandfather, cinema received inspiration for Frank Sinatra, and what he saw, it was served as an inspiration for his Catalonian rumba songs, and my auntie is dedicated to cinema, great part of their lives, and then we have continued. So therefore, it's much deeper rooted in our family, acting much more than what we're aware. And we also talked about this because it makes sense that the tool was to make a film at the end of the day. I couldn't make a record. So therefore, making a film, to a certain extent, makes sense with what it was and will continue to be. I'm sorry, we've run out of time for further questions. So this claim of Antonio and the Flores as actors and actresses, we keep this. A big round of applause for the whole team of the film Flores para Antonio.
No, y una cosa, puedo decir una cosa muy
Can I
rápida.
just say something very quickly? I just realized when I did this, there's something very important that I'd like to say. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel good. I'm excessively upfront. It's not common that I've been able to make this process, which is a personal process, which has changed my life for the better, and I think my family, it's changed their life for the better, with the complicity of so many people that have started to work and to make the best possible film, which is the best possible film for my mental health. So it's very exciting and thrilling. I want to thank all of these people. I feel very all of those people that are sitting here that have worked on this film, because everyone has done it with a kindness and sensitivity that hits me deep inside. And I have this feeling that your family, your blood family and genetical family, there's a lot of weight behind it, and it's great that they can give a lot of love to you and you can grow. But that's really cool. But if all of a sudden you find a circle of community and people who are also doing this, and with the support and with the way they've done it, I'm very, very fortunate. I want to say this and to manifest this, because so that they can know this as well.